Hey, what's up everybody? It's great to have you back here for another session where we get straight to the point and save you a ton of time. Today I'm going to help you avoid one of the most soul-crushing things that can happen while you are trying to capture a performance, audio clipping. I learned this the hard way on a past project where two of my best takes absolutely exploded with distortion, and I had to perform some total audio wizardry just to try and save them. So here are the practical steps I use now to never let that happen again, and keep my tracks sounding crystal clear every single time. I also have a little workflow life hack for you that will save your sanity and help you turn long sessions into social clips without stressing over every tiny mistake. Tip number 1 is to check your input levels at the actual volume you intend to be playing at for the entire performance. It sounds like common sense, but I see so many people do a quick check where they strum once, look at the screen, and assume they are totally fine. Then they crank into the actual record mode, and suddenly they are looking at red spikes all over their waveform because they played harder than the test. What you want to do is set your levels while performing at the absolute maximum volume you expect to hit during the song, and then add a little extra headroom. Personally, I aim for peaks around -6 decibels going into the recording software, as that gives me a safe place to land. Your mileage may vary based on your equipment, but aiming for that sweet spot is a really solid starting point for any session. Visually, I like to see a waveform that takes up about half the track height on my screen, rather than hugging the very top or bottom. That gives me roughly 25% headroom at the top and bottom, which is exactly the kind of safety net you want. Why does that matter so much, you might ask? Well, once you start adding plugins, EQ, compression, or saturation later on, those processes can easily push the signal level higher than you intended. If you record right up against 0 decibels, any extra processing you add later can push it into clipping, and then you are really in trouble. If you are recording with someone else, this is much easier because they can keep an eye on the levels in the software while you play your heart out. When you are soloing it, I totally get that running back and forth between your instrument and the computer is a huge pain in the neck. I personally use a remote control app sometimes, so I can tweak levels directly from my phone while I am still holding my instrument. Even if you do that, always do the full volume check and then add an extra 20% of gain leeway to be absolutely safe. Just don't destroy your speakers in the process of testing these levels because that would be counterproductive. If you do that and still see peaks hitting above -6, go ahead and dial your preamp or interface gain down a bit more. Tip number 2 is to use the pad on your interface if it has one, because that little button is an absolute lifesaver. My interface has a -10 decibel pad, and it has honestly saved me from clipping more times than I can count. A pad attenuates the incoming signal before it even hits the preamp, so even if your pickup or mic is really hot, the pad keeps things clean. Always check your interface manual, because some units have a clip light that only tells you clipped, but doesn't do anything to prevent it. Others have a proper hardware pad or a limiter, so you need to know exactly which one you are working with. Tip number 3 is if your interface doesn't have a pad, or you just want an extra layer of protection, use input processing. This works in pretty much any digital audio workstation out there today. Instead of recording straight onto the track, try recording through an auxiliary bus with a compressor and optionally a limiter inserted. You've got your interface sending to an AUX. The AUX has a compressor that tames hot spikes, and then that AUX is routed to the actual track. You are essentially creating a little safety net that prevents the clipping before it ever hits the actual recorded waveform. Now, there are some trade-offs to consider, so you have to be mindful of your process. The pro is you will almost never record a clipped take, which saves you hours of post-production time. The con is that if you compress too aggressively, you might lose some dynamic nuance and limit your processing choices later on. My trick is to set the compressor for very gentle control, using a low ratio like 2:1. Use a soft knee and an attack that is fast enough to catch spikes, but not so fast that it kills the transients entirely. Keep the release at a medium setting so it breathes naturally, and keep your threshold just below the loudest parts. And don't overdo the makeup gain, because that defeats the purpose of the safety net you are trying to build. If you want specifics, I often use an attack around 1 to 10 milliseconds, and a release around 50 to 200 milliseconds. Then, I'll add a limiter with a ceiling of -0.1 decibels as the final safety net for the whole chain. Okay, a small aside from the tech stuff. I had 2 parts on my first record that clipped really hard, and it was a total forehead smack moment. I ended up doing a bunch of spectral repair and tricky crossfades to hide it, but it took way longer than it should have. Honestly, if I'd used a quick input bus compressor or the interface pad back then, I wouldn't have had to fix it at all. These days, I do the pre-check, the pad, and light bus compression, and it has honestly saved me hours of cleanup work. Now here's where the creator workflow tie-in really comes into play. You are probably making long-form videos, podcasts, or studio sessions and want to turn those into short, snackable content for social media. If you have ever worried that a clipped second or a rough take would wreck your ability to repurpose that session, that is a real pain. This is exactly where a smart tool like Vizard becomes seriously helpful for your content strategy. Vizard isn't an audio fixer, and it's not a clunky manual editor where you have to scrub for hours on end. Vizard's superpower is turning long recordings into high-quality short clips automatically by finding the viral moments. If you have an honest, messy session with a few clipped spots, Vizard can actually help you in 2 big ways. First, it automatically locates the clean, high-energy sections that are perfect for social media, so you don't waste time salvaging a bad part. Second, its scheduling and content calendar make it easy to turn a single long session into weeks of content without manually editing every single snippet. Compare that to other options out there. Premiere is great but manual, and some other tools take way too much skill to use. Vizard sits in this sweet spot where you don't need to be an audio ninja to get great results. It automatically finds your best moments, suggests crop points, and helps you publish consistently without the stress. It's not a miracle cure for totally blown out audio, but it is fantastic at maximizing the usable material you do have. A practical workflow I use now is to record with good levels. Use the interface pad, and then upload the raw session to Vizard. Vizard analyzes the video or audio, picks the highlights, and gives me a whole batch of short clips ready to post. If a single note clipped in one section, Vizard usually favors a different take or phrase that is cleaner. It effectively finds the natural moments that people actually care about, which is so much more important than perfection. And the auto schedule and content calendar mean I don't have to babysit my posting, I just set the frequency and go. That has been a total game changer for keeping my social channels active while I finish my longer music projects. A couple more quick tech tips for the road. If you are routing through an aux for input processing, be mindful of latency. Use a low latency buffer while you are tracking, or use plug-in delay compensation if you need it to keep everything synced. Also, just be conservative with your gain staging across the whole chain, from preamp to software to plugins. Keep everything so your maximum peaks live well below 0 decibels, and you will stay in the clear. And one more thing about loudness. For final short-form clips, don't crush the dynamic range trying to make everything louder. Let some dynamics live, because people engage so much more with natural performances than they do with overcompressed audio. Vizard helps by keeping your best performing takes intact and letting you schedule them at the optimal cadence for your audience. So, to recap quickly, check levels at real volume, use your pad, use an AUX for safety, and use Vizard for repurposing. If you do those things together, you'll avoid most clipping headaches and still have a huge stack of high-quality clips ready to publish. I really hope that helped. It was a short video today, but absolutely packed with the info you need. I learned the hard way, so you don't have to, and I hope this saves you some of the frustration I went through. If you like these mini tutorials, hit the like and subscribe buttons because we drop these helpful tips every single Tuesday and Thursday. Also, if you are building a content pipeline from studio sessions to socials, definitely check out Vizard. It saved me hours and let me focus on the actual music while still keeping my channels fed and active. Alright, I will see you on the next one. Keep your levels clean, keep the tone epic, and keep making stuff. Peace.